There's a call out and a debate as to whether this artist used generative AI for their works or not. So let's delve into it and see. And again, let me remind you, please don't send hate to any parties involved. So this was the call out that was posted.
This person seems to be using AI and passing it off as real art. They've gained a substantial following and even appear to be selling commissions. At first, nothing seemed particularly suspicious. However, looking closer, certain irregularities appear. The first giveaway is their progress. It goes directly from line art to finished illustration.
The line art to finished illustration jump is something that real artists will post. Because, you know, you want to post a line art, you want to post a finished product, and then the viewers, you know, it's hard to get viewer retention nowadays, so you gotta do what you gotta do. That's definitely one thing. That is unfortunately also something a lot of the AI tracers do, because the middle part of the process is all funky, either because they're tracing Gen AI and they don't know what they're doing in the middle, so it looks weird, so they're not gonna post it, or they used AI to generate the before and the after, if they're fully generating stuff, which is why there is also gonna be no middle, because there isn't a middle. Also, on a side note for this art piece in specific of what looks like Jesus holding a glass of whiskey or something. I don't drink, so I don't know what this is. Jesus is missing half his pinky, but I digress here.
No sketches, revisions, or discarded versions. So I investigated further.
What I think is really interesting is the fact that if you look at the line art to the final product, the line art is beautifully done. For the most part. Again, Jesus is missing half his pinky finger, which that on its own has me scratching my head. It makes me feel like this isn't fully legitimate. I'm not saying real humans cannot accidentally fuck up hands, because like absolutely they can, but it's so rare to have somebody like draw a 6-digit on a hand or draw every finger for the most part correct and draw half a pinky. But that's something that's super common with AI. But what I was talking about with the line art is that this person does fully fleshed out, beautiful line art with varying line weights, whatever. The final product of the art, I don't know the name of the art style, but it's like shapes. So there's no line art in their final product at all. So that's why to me, it's odd that they do such like hefty fleshed out line work with varying line weights. Like the outline is darker than the fine details like the beard, which is done in a much thinner line weight. All of that variation of whatever would imply that you're going to use the line art, but then they don't. I'm not saying you can't draw like that you're not allowed to, you know, do a fully fleshed out line art and then completely block it in with shape so that your final product has zero line art in it. But it's just an interesting choice. But also, if you take another look at the line art real quick, the line art is weird. I'm sorry. Besides Jesus missing half his pinky finger, we have a strand of hair coming from Jesus's side bang. And I'm sorry if he's not Jesus, but that's what he reminds me of. It intersects into his beard and disappears. The whole chunk of hair falling out from the group of hair and reconnecting, that's normal. A lot of artists draw like that. That's a very popular art style. I like to draw like that. You don't have it like melting into other parts of hair. That doesn't make sense. It's melting into his beard. Your baby bangs don't do that. Also, Jesus's sunglasses are missing the nose bridge. I feel like that's a little important to draw in. I just find this line art a bit funny. But yeah, here's another one of their line arts. So you can see another example where they draw a fully fleshed out line art. Again, it looks like they're going to color it in. And they do, but they don't use the line art, which I just think is an interesting choice. Here we have another line art. And I once again have a lot of questions with this line art. So many questions, actually. Her eyeliner is melting into the frame of the glasses. Both of them. Like, she's wearing glasses. The top frame of the glasses is her eyeliner. That's a choice. And then her hair has like a big kind of like crossing ribbon in her ponytail. And then the bottom of her ponytail also features 2 more ribbon straps that, instead of wrapping around her ponytail, connect from her ponytail into her giant sleeve. That's also a choice. Feel like humans wouldn't do that. A big one is you ask the question, would a human draw this? Would a human have the ponytail ribbons connect into the fold of her sleeve instead of, I don't know, wrapping around the ponytail like the other one did? Probably not. Can't say no for certain, but probably not, right? But then we look at the final product when it's colored in and suddenly it makes sense. When it's colored in, it's no longer connecting into the sleeve, it's just there. That's interesting. Why does it make sense now?
So I investigated further. I contacted them under the pretense of wanting a commission, asking if they had a time-lapse and or Speedpaint to share with me. They claimed that they had only made the one time-lapse. That was strange, considering they clearly used Ibis Paint, which automatically records a Speedpaint.
This is really funny. That is their redraw of this other art piece. This one right here, because I made a video about them. I'll link it down below if I remember, because this artist was like all over Instagram and almost all of their art, if not all, in my opinion, was AI generated. So that's their redraw of it. So I just thought it was so funny.
Even after your drawing is complete. final giveaway.
But yeah, I definitely think that is a very interesting one. If an artist won't provide any speed paints, recordings, whatever, as an artist, you're allowed to do whatever you want, including posting speed paints or not posting speed paints if you don't want to show it. However, I don't know why you wouldn't if it's in the case of a client approaching you, wanting a commission, and their one holdup is that they just want to like extra verify that you're real. You know, like you got money on the line, money is on the table here. Don't you want to just like, hey, you know, I'm just gonna export one of my pieces real fast just to show you real quick. Please give me that back. You know, again, artists are allowed to post whatever they want, so I can understand maybe an artist will have a reason as to why they don't want to post a speed paint publicly, maybe. But like, if a commission's on the line in this economy, you don't want to?
The speed paint.
Oh,
Now look closely. The finished artwork essentially just appears. Any one of the
this is like the fakest speed paint ever. Did you see that? They immediately again knew where everything goes. The character didn't have to be redrawn, nothing had to be undone, etc. They immediately knew where everything goes. I say this time and time again. Are there artists who draw like this? Yes, there are. It's not unheard of. It's not very common though. Most artists will have to undo something. Maybe a hair strand's wrong, maybe a finger's wrong or whatever. But they're not going to be perfect out the gate, one shot, done. That's pretty rare. That is something though that you'll see in people who are tracing images. They'll immediately know where everything goes because they're tracing something. That's how they do it.
these things could be a coincidence, but all of them together.
I'm not buying this at all. Why do we render half the face? First off, they rendered neck up, bottom up instead of top down. Again, everybody can render their own way, but this artist already is checking a lot of boxes that are very uncommon, right? One, fully inking line art just to not use the line art. Secondly, immediately knowing where everything goes when it comes to lining and sketching. They don't have to redo at all. Third, they're like rendering in a very interesting way. Bottom up. They rendered the neck and then the jaw, the skin where the mouth goes, and they stop just under the nose. The rest of the face is all white. The rest of the bangs is all white. Except this character's sleeping on their side and they have ombre hair. And they rendered half the hair on the outside, but left the middle white. So it's as if they're drawing the sun, but instead of drawing the big yellow circle first and drawing the spokes second, they drew all the spokes first. And then they're gonna, I guess, render the middle after. And then they go in and start applying color for the rest of the face. So then they color in the bangs, then they color in the rest of the face and the ear. Now, what to me is really weird about this is that, again, are there some artists who render piecemeal, piece by piece, as in they'll render all of the skin and then all of the clothes, whatever? It's not common, but some artists will do that. What I think is weird is that this artist is doing that for pieces that use the same color. Again, they rendered half the face, not even a quarter of the face. Then they go and finish the hair because, again, it's like ombre hair. So they finish the hair and they go back to coloring the face in. Mind you, the face is using the same color. It's not like they had to change colors. They had to go back, probably color select the color they were using and finish it. That to me is just odd because typically if you're going to jump around like that, you would jump around within the same color. So if somebody likes to fully render something and then move on to the next thing they're going to fully render, they probably would, I don't know, fully render the skin, which would use roughly the same color or same set of colors. Then they would go and fully render the shirt, which would use the same, set of colors. And then they'll go and fully render the hair. But no, this person did neck, jaw, the orange part of the hair, and then half of the ombre, finished the bangs, face, and now we're doing the ear. That's so odd.
Interesting scenario. So unless they can provide evidence
And then they start putting the rest of the shading down.
otherwise, these artworks are highly likely to be AI generated and traced.
Where's the other hand in this line art? Here we have line art of a woman leaning against the invisible wall with a guitar. Nothing about this makes sense. Her right hand is gone and the guitar is floating in the sky.
And if that's true, then their following and paid commissions were built on a false representation of their artistic process. With that, I suppose, it'll be case closed.
Damn. What I find interesting is that a lot of people are confused as to how this person is generating their stuff with AI because they're like, oh, well, we see a time lapse, so like, how do you know the time lapse is fake? This is just anecdotal evidence and you're not substantiating your claims, which to me, I disagree with. And I agree with what the poster is saying about their speculations of this person's artwork. We only have one speed paint to look at because that's all they gave us. So we're only going to be able to extrapolate based on that. But if you just take a look at the way they're drawing, again, if we slow this down, somehow they know where like every strand of hair needs to go. Again, out the gate, it's not impossible, but it's not Common. All right, they draw in everything else. Okay, and then we darken and flesh out the rest of the stuff. The coloring to me is what is really odd, beyond even the sketchy part of it. Because look at how they color. Again, they color the shirt, they don't finish it. They color the pillow and they don't finish it. They color the arm and they leave the fingers. And then they start coloring the hair. And this is what's weird, is that we see them, they color the neck, then they color the bangs by the neck. So you can see this part of the bang appears and this part of the bang appears. And then we have the color for the jaw and the tip of the bangs appearing simultaneously. And mind you, what I find even more suspicious about this is that there's like a shadow beneath the bangs as well. So they somehow drew the shadow in together. It's a little bit pixelated though, right? But you see this again. The next frame, we once again have two separate colors appearing. The orange for the hair and the grayish color for the skin. Again, I know this is a speed paint, so you can apply more than one color together. But this is what is odd because like artists are typically lazy. They're not going to want to swap between 10,000 different colors when they're drawing. And this art piece doesn't have that many colors in it. There's only orange, there's gray, there's like a lighter gray, and then there's like a even lighter gray for the hair. They didn't finish the hair, by the way. In this one chunk of hair, they went back to selecting the same color of orange, color that in, select the gray for the skin, color in one line's worth of gray, select the orange again, and color in more of the orange, select back to the gray, and we draw the shadow for the hair. And then this is what to me is even more damning because like if I zoom this in, you could probably see it better. We have a sliver of orange appearing with the gray. What this looks like to me is that they're doing the eraser technique where they're like erasing stuff away to make it look like they drew it by erasing a white layer to reveal the color beneath it. How do you have this tiny sliver of orange appear? You can see this again with more of their artworks. You see this? We back this up. There is a really, really faint like baby orange rim light appearing on this person's face due to the color of the hair. And somehow, boom, we have the gray for the skin, a dark orange for the mouth, and all of the rim light drawn in. And do you see this part here? Do you see what I'm seeing? There is this thin strand of white hair. But why was part of the strand already drawn in on this frame? It's been drawn in since they were drawing in the like edges for their orange hair. And then now they drew in the rest of orange to reveal the white strand of hair. Why is it visible here? It shouldn't be visible on these frames if it was drawn in after. The ordering of what things are drawn in makes zero sense. And then just look at how color is appearing. Multiple colors appearing together. Before, after, before, after. This is a different color than this color, which is also a different color than this color. Why is it all appearing together? This is an ombre. Another ombre appears on one frame. Again, a brush only paints one color, okay? You're not gonna get 5 different colors appearing with one brush stroke. The order of what they're rendering and how they're rendering it would not happen if you were to draw legitimately, in my opinion. I'm just gonna keep pressing. You can just see frame by frame as things are appearing, nothing is adding up. Look at this, boom. We have what looks like one line appear, and I know it's a speed paint, so it's not gonna show every brush stroke. But how come in this one line, 3 colors appear? The gray for the front of the hair, the baby orange for the ombre portion of the hair, and then we have a little bit of orange in it. Like, it's like a pink orange. So we have a little bit of pink and a little bit of orange. Again, how come 3 colors are appearing? And then the next frame, all of the gray conveniently appears underneath, and then now the colors make sense. Doesn't make sense here, makes sense here. Again, one brush stroke, how come we can see a little bit of orange here? If all you were coloring in was gray. If you're using a brush that was selected to gray, why should orange appear? Unless you're erasing a layer above it, and you accidentally revealed a little bit of orange in the layer below. Now, as they draw the bangs in, you can see that that white strand of hair I was talking about earlier suddenly makes sense as to why it's placed here. It didn't before. And then basically we can see the rest of the art piece appearing. In my personal opinion, this is most absolutely faked and they use the eraser method. And the reason why they can't produce more speed paints is because this is probably a bunch of work for them to go fake. That's my thought process. And since that call out was posted, this person has privated their page, which I think also speaks to what has been happening here. So with that, what are your thoughts, guys? Because to me, this most definitely looks like somebody faking it with the eraser method. Big kudos to OP for calling them out. And again, a lot of people weren't believing them, but I'm like, if you slow the speed paint down, this looks pretty damning. But I also understand, because if you're not an artist, it may not make sense as to how the speed paint looks weird. But again, too many colors are appearing in one brush stroke. That doesn't happen. The order of what things are being colored in doesn't make any sense. And there's things appearing in the coloring process that shouldn't appear till later. And they're just doing things that the average artist would never do because it just doesn't make sense to do it that way. There's an easier way to do it. So with all of that, that's my verdict. But what are your thoughts? And again, don't send hate to any parties involved. With that, if you like this video, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Don't forget to check me out on Etsy. I have digital art there. Also, follow me on Instagram. I'm trying to get my Instagram to 100K. We're getting there. We're 5.5K away. So we're still far, but closer. So we're working on it. Yay. And follow me on Twitch. I stream there 3 days a week, Mondays and Saturdays at 6 p.m. PST, and Thursdays at 7:30, where I do a podcast with my friend. So I hope to catch you all there or in another video. Peace.